Welcome to the Empowered Podcast by World Impact. Here's the question for today. Does anyone care about COVID-19 behind bars? Today, I'm so privileged to be talking with, I consider my friend Matt Thomas, pastor and founder of Firm Foundations. And we're going to talk about how COVID-19, this crisis, is impacting prisons and prison ministry as a whole right now. So welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, man. I really appreciate it. How are you actually doing so far in the pandemic? How's your family?
Man, thanks, David, for having me. We're doing okay. I mean, it's been a little crazy. Some of the hardest parts are every time, so right now I've got allergies, right? Because the weather's been crazy. But every time you cough, you're really suspicious of every cough and every sniffle.
Don't cough at Walmart, CVS. Don't do that.
That's the funny thing, right? And don't post on Facebook if you're sick, right? Because everybody's like,
that's right.
Hey, but no, honestly, it's been good, and it's been rough on a multitude of fronts. With the family, I've gotten some really uninterrupted time with my boys, and I've gotten to see, I got to go down and see my grandkids a little bit and see how good my daughters are doing, and it's brought my wife and I closer. Which
Amen.
All the jokes are that usually goes the opposite, but me and my wife have gotten to spend more time. It's just, man, I really miss the fellas inside the prison though, because all that's been shut down, of course.
Well, and one of the things that I think, I know why you're so passionate about this ministry. But, in your book, The Overlooked, which is a fantastic book, by the way, and I encourage everybody to go grab it on Amazon, read it, get Matt's heart. But in the book, you discuss, your history of addiction and prison and how you're now, though, ministering to returning citizens, our friends and family who are out, coming out and inside. Let me ask you a question, just a little personally. What resources, and what kind of systems did you have or when you got out, what was lacking right when you got out that's still today?
So I'll tell you this, I went through prison in the Arizona Department of Corrections, and there are certain prison states, right, that are absolutely, horrible prisons to do prison time, and Arizona is one of them. So you have California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. It's extremely, it's all run by gangs. It's just different, right? So what we call political inside the prison is not normal political on the streets. Political inside the prison is you have a code you have to follow. If you don't follow it, it becomes a big problem, right? So Arizona really isn't hip to really reentry, and they might be now because I've been out of prison 11 years. But back then it was here's $50 and don't come back, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while you're in prison, you're not programming, you're not doing anything. You're just not. Like, I went to work, I made 50 cents an hour, and what we actually did was we planted a church inside of the prison in Arizona, which was goofy because none of us, I think there was like 2 of us that actually grew up in church, but we were so hungry that we had to have something, and there just wasn't. It was
Wow.
It was a prison work camp way up in northern Arizona, and it was just, there was nothing. And so it really shaped that, that hunger to want to see something different.
So is that really what moved you to work with men and women coming out of prison?
Well, yes and no. It was kind of, so God did something really marvelous, and my wife saw this. So it was real weird, man. I was at work, and my wife hands me this phone number when I come home, and she says, "Hey, I need you to call this lady. I think you should start. I think you should start ministering in the prisons. I think you would love it." I was like, "Nah," you know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't want to go anywhere near a prison. I was like, "Man, I'm done." But
They
it was
gave me
really,
my $50, told me not to come back.
yeah.
Right.
Hey, thank you. But that's $50 I ever earned. The deal was I really didn't want to do that, and she actually saw this commercial twice, and so it was really strange because I was like, okay, I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to do it. So I went and did this training for Mentoring for Success, phenomenal program in Kansas. I did this training, and the guy says, "Hey, where did you hear about us?" And I said, my wife saw a commercial and gave me the number. And this dude looked at me and said, "We never made any commercials." And
Wow.
I said, "Yes, you know what I mean?" So like from the get go, I mean, it was a really God and what, so whether they did or didn't, it was
Right.
God inspired. And so just through that process of out feeding people on the street and having coffee with them, you know what I'm saying? We used to go
Right.
downtown Wichita and just sit and have coffee with folks and pray with them. And it really started my heart to say, man, these cats ain't got nothing down here. And so it made me want to dig in and try to change that.
Well, let me ask you before, because I want to get to, our big question,
Right.
especially about COVID-19, what's happening behind bars. But let me ask you, just give us a quick, what are you doing now with Firm Foundations?
So so with firm foundations, what we do is we provide structure and housing for men and women to, whether they come from, addiction, from incarceration, or just, man, just having a really rough time in life. And so we provide them with a safe place to have a fresh start, right? And so we charge them a program fee. But they have to be active in a church. They have to be active in some other social constructive groups, and we provide them with that wonderful, safe place that's not too overwhelmingly expensive to get a start in life and to be able to step out from there and be successful.
And so, how many locations do you have?
So we have locations in three different cities. We have four houses in Wichita, Kansas, three men's and a women and children's. We have six one-bedroom apartments in Topeka and a transitional house in Topeka. And then we have in Kansas City, Kansas, we have a transitional house. And so
Hey,
altogether, I think we can help 40 people or something like that, 30
wow.
something, 40 people.
Wow. Well, and I don't want to even pass over Freedom Initiative, the church that has been planted. Man, tell us. This is this year.
Yep.
I'm so excited, man. I really, really love the ministry that you guys are doing. So tell us about Freedom Initiative.
So God taking me through the journey of becoming a pastor was crazy because I didn't think it would ever happen, right? But it did, and we ended up planting churches with some Toomey graduates, right? God bless Toomey, but we had solid Toomey graduates that I was working with inside of Hutch Central, and then two of them transferred to the Medium, and we're like, man, we want to plant a Christ the Victor church. We need a pastor who, you know what I mean? And so through the process of the inmate to wife, from wife to my wife to wife to me, it is like, hey man, would you be pastor? And at first I was like, man, that's not in my wheelhouse, and I don't think I can do that. And the guy was like, I think you're going to do that. And
Right.
so we actually planted two churches simultaneously because one of the men, Randy, my good buddy, so it was Randy Pennington and Abraham Orr are the ones. And so Randy ended up going to the Minimum. And so we simultaneously planted two churches on the Minimum and the Medium. I think we started in 2015, and to where they were fully outfitted and ready to go. And then my family moved up here to Kansas City from Wichita, and then we ended up planting four more. And then they started doing work on the prison, so that cut out one of the churches, and the one on the outside just kind of, there was some trouble, and the guy that was trying to get it going outside just was having a hard time. And so it kind of, it wasn't time. And
Right.
so then through a strange series of events, we ended up moving to from KCK to Johnson County, and it was like God said, "Hey, man, now it's time for you to get that church moving." And so,
Wow.
so being faithful to that, my wife and I, we started planting the church, the Freedom Initiative outside church, inside of our house, and it grew out of that, man. Now we meet at a great church called the Foundry, and Brian Wright was like, I was like, "Hey, man, I'd like to start a church out here for murders and you know what I mean?" I just ran
Right.
through the whole list, and he was like,
Let's
"That's
do it.
awesome. Let me show
Yeah.
you." You know what I mean? And so his heart to serve God was amazing, and so that's what we did. And I actually planted with my pastor, that was the pastor inside of Lansing, who just got done
Wow.
doing 10 years, Pastor Will Stevens. And
Wow.
so now we've got a few other guys that are out that are just rock stars for Jesus. And so now we've got the whole team of these men that are now outside planting the church that planted inside.
That's amazing. So, the trail was, we've got seminary training inside the prisons,
Yep.
training men and women, right? Training them with theological education. From there, they started a church inside, which multiplied to more than 6 churches,
Yep.
right? And then the overflow of them returning into our communities now have planted a church, and
Yep.
I absolutely suspect them to plant more churches.
Oh, 100%. And so if we
So
can hit 100, we're jumping
let's
off for the
do it.
next
That's
one.
right.
That's the plan.
That's the start. Okay, let's get to, does anyone care about COVID-19 behind bars? That is, now listen to this. The conservative estimates, this is done by the Center for Justice. This check this out. The Council of State Governments Justice Center says conservative estimates show that rates of COVID-19 cases among incarcerated state prisons and prison staff are more than 3.5 times higher than that of the general public. 3.5 times higher than the general public. And you still do not hear of the outcry that's going on with COVID-19 behind bars. These are totally disproportionate rates. There's surges in deaths and cases inside the prisons, and corrections officials.
Yep.
It's happening. It's not being discussed. So right now, we know that they're dealing, incarcerated men and women are dealing with this pandemic alone. So how are you, and how is your ministry trying to deal with this problem? Is part of it just getting the word out?
Yeah, I would say that's a huge part. And you really hit the nail on the head. People just don't know, right? They don't know. They don't understand the concept. And so if you would, brother, picture, prisons are built to house people, not
Mm,
comfortably. They're just built to house people, right? They're built to provide walls to keep the dangerous people in. And so when you do that, most of them are older with poor ventilation systems. Most of them run on a serious loop. There's not much of, the air filters. I mean,
yeah.
it's prison. And so what happens is when you're inside and you get sick, so if you have an 80-man dorm, right, you get sick, I guarantee the guy next to you is going to get sick. And then
Right.
it's going to run all the way down the chain. And then this is the craziness. You will end up getting it again just because everybody is so contained. And so what you have is basically you have a barrel of gasoline and wood, and somebody threw a match in it, right? Because
Right.
because you've got almost 2,000 people, or just over 2,000 people, all crammed close together because it's a
Mhm.
prison. And so
Yeah.
so what happens, of course, is that not only affects, right? And so you have people from differing viewpoints. Well, it's prison and blah, you know what I mean? They're people. But the bigger part is even if you can't think like that, what about the families of the people that are going in there to work, right? We,
Exactly.
we just lost 2 men, and they were good men that were correctional officers, to COVID-19, because it's dangerous. It's that dangerous. And when
And
you
this was
have that,
here.
yeah, this was 30 minutes from me. You know what I'm saying? And these were 2 men that I knew. And
Wow.
so you have just, it's just a concentration of sickness because of the rate of spread. And so, yeah, you may not have any symptoms, but the older guy next to you that's done drugs most of his life and has a broken immune system, or has just done a lot of prison time because it wears on you, it turns out that he might get it, and he might die. Be- it, and that's how it works.
Well, and the other thing that I don't think we think of very often is the medical system inside is not the same as the medical system outside.
No.
It is not even close. And so even if like you said, it's the barrel and the wood,
Yep.
because you not only have confined spaces, you not only have not just our incarcerated citizens, but the workers inside the same loop,
Yep.
and the prison medical system isn't adequate enough.
No.
uh, and so how, well, let me ask you this. How does the church, let's point the finger at us. How does the church love those in prison right now? What
So,
can we actually do?
so I would say it's a two-pronged deal. I mean, number one, it's it's not generating a buzz around, and so just bear with me through this, the poor man or woman in prison and can't believe the administration's doing this, you know what I mean? That doesn't help anything. You actually cause more problems for everybody involved with that approach. uh,
Got it.
number one it's support the administration and the staff. They're doing the best they can. Nobody is a disease control expert, you know what I'm saying, anywhere
Yes.
through. And so try to support the facilities and say, what can we as the church do? So perfect example, right? There are churches inside of Leavenworth and Lansing that could really raise up and just support the people that work at Leavenworth prison and Lansing prison, and just say, hey, we want to get together to do this, whatever this is, man. We want to give you a break. We want to take you to a special dinner. I mean, just whatever we can do to help, right? Whatever. Hey, so, look, let's be honest. They've lost 80 people in isolation as staff as a prison. That's insane. You have
That's devastating.
It is, because you have people working 3 to 4 jobs that they don't do, but they have to, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a have to situation. And so there's one is actually take some time and support the people, because look, throughout life, in my life as a kid, living in drugs and just that whole environment, right? You're taught that cops are bad and corrections officers are, you know what I mean? You're taught this, but the fact is, some of them are really, really great people. And
Right.
they're just working a job just like any of the rest of us would have to work a job. And so they, day after day, put their life on the line to go do this job. And some of them actually really, really care about the men and women inside and want to see them okay. And so
Yeah.
they so let's take a step back and say, hey, rather than attack as the
Right.
church, right? Because we're really good at shooting our own when they're down. Let's lift them up, and let's say, hey, how can I walk this with you? What can we do to support what you're trying to do? Whether it's,
Yeah.
I mean, just however this looks, right? So,
Yeah.
and the second prong is, see if you can send some cards in for the men and women. Let them know they're not forgotten. If you got somebody on JPay, which I know not everywhere has JPay, but JPay is the email system that the majority of the prisons have. You can send little videos, JPays, you know what I mean? Just little things. Just let them know that they're not forgotten. Let them know that they matter. Talk to them. Uh, so this has been a trying time because we've lost people to addiction. We've lost, I mean, just all kinds of craziness, right? So amplify that times 1,000, and so for a
Yes.
while they were able to meet on their own. Like, so here's a perfect example. My pastor Brandon inside of Lansing Minimum is in isolation because he tested positive for COVID and was running a fever. So he was not only positive, but he was symptomatic, and he's healthy as a horse. And,
Mhm.
and so if my brother, you know what I mean, is struggling, that says a lot for a lot of other people involved. And so it made it to the point that they weren't even allowed to meet anymore because of that spread. So now you
Right.
have them stuck in the same spot all day. And for some of you, you know what I mean, out there that maybe don't have a context of that, let's say that you're stuck at home, but you don't have the food you get to choose to eat from. You don't have you know what I mean? You have a TV to watch with 4 channels. You have, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you take all the creature comforts away. You have a bed, you have a bathroom, you have a shower, and you got 4 channels. And
Wow.
and and you're stuck there with 129 other dudes.
Yeah.
Or 129 other women, right? It's That's what it looks like 24 hours a day, maybe 23 and one, because they can't
Mhm.
take the chance on it. Because it's I mean, we're talking almost 800 confirmed cases
Yeah.
just in Lansing prison. And so, that's it's letting our brothers and sisters know that we love them and they're not forgotten, and try to find creative ways to work with the administration to do something that's not going to create, of course, more of an outbreak. But what can we do? Can we put a program on the TV, right? So every prison has a centralized TV system. Man, can we start pumping in more things? Can we
Right.
tell them how much we love them? Can we, you know what I'm saying? Can we as the church, right, make a big banner, have the whole, just do something, just do
Mhm.
something that says,
Yeah.
hey, man, we love you and we care about you.
Well, and I hope this becomes, the pandemic has become a crisis around the world, but I hope that in many, and I think in our lives, in my life, it becomes a tipping point. It becomes a point where you mark and say something has to change. And so, I really do. I encourage every pastor, every believer, to let this be a tipping point to say, you know what, we need to do something, and find a way to be an encouragement. And again, we're not only talking about our citizens, our incarcerated citizens inside, but the workers.
Yep.
Let this be a real tipping point. Okay, in many people that I've talked to, we sort of go through the fear and anxiety, but then we get to the point of growth and innovation. How will this pandemic shape the way you do ministry?
So so right now, right, thanks to World Impact Church of the Resurrection, we were able to purchase new studio equipment, right, which is goofy because I've never done that in my life. And so what we're doing is we are taking a room in our basement and we are turning it into a complete podcast slash recording studio, to where we are going to do live videos. We're going to do recorded videos. We're going to start a thing. It's going to be called the Genesis Project, and it's going to be all centered around Christ and success in prison and out of prison. And so rather than just doing so we meet on Saturday night, 6 o'clock. So rather than just doing that, and then, a couple discipleship groups, man, we're going to try to send out things throughout the week to encourage, to grow, to provide something different. And then we want to get that in the prisons, and so we want to get it in Lansing. And so rather than just doing services, man, we want to highlight the men and the women that have come out, that are
Wow.
now doing, you know what I mean? And so that's where we're trying to shift, is we're trying to not make it so much of just empowering these men and women, but man, we're trying to hit them with, hey, this is what it looks like on the outside, be encouraged, and to not leave any gaps in the process of what we do.
Wow. See, that's the kind of change that even crisis will make us move into. So let me
Revival,
ask a question.
brother. It's revival.
Exactly. Well, and I think a lot of times we forget as believers, that there is a church. There are multiple churches inside.
Yep.
They're worshiping the same God.
Yeah.
They're preaching the same gospel. They're discipling your brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters, throughout the country. You know what I mean, and the
Yeah.
world, behind bars, and we need to keep them in prayer. Uh, Let me ask you a question. Because you work with our families coming back into the community, how do you, or who have you identified as a leader? Sort of, I'm trying to think. As pastors in the community, how do we identify leaders, and what are we to do, right, to get them empowered and get them connected?
So this is kind of what we're actually, and this, I don't want to lead into our other question because we got the bigger what's happening now question, right? But so our goal with Freedom Initiative and Firm Foundations, really in Brothers in Blue. So I used to work with Brothers in Blue, worked for them for 3 years, phenomenal organization, and I've never seen anything work better for preparing men, you know what I mean, for release.
Okay.
And so through this, what we try to do is we're trying to build a system to where right when they're identified as leaders, as developers, as whatever you want to call it, man, we want to snatch them up and we want to start a training process. And so the thing that we're working on is what's called that's why I dropped the Genesis Project, is really that's the process of, okay, so we've got 15 identified leaders. Well, now they're going to run under an apprenticeship program where we're going to develop them through Toomey and other, Toomey resources, through through different kind of organizations. We're going to partner them with a church and a pastor in the wherever they are going to, and so they will actually do a apprenticeship style process to where you, let's say, Pastor David, like you would be, okay, so I've got John and Jerry, and so you would walk with them, and loosely, because it's a lot of the time in prison, so it's not like super restrictive, but once a month, where are we at? But they would come out, they would maybe go to a Firm Foundation's house, and then they would apprentice under you to be able to get raised up into leadership, complete the other requirements, occupationally, and be able for you to have a checklist to say, okay, so now I'm ready to either send you out or raise you up to work in the church. And so that's kind of what we're working on right now.
Got it. And see, I think, not only here in Kansas and in anywhere around the state, if you're watching right now and you believe that we can empower leaders coming out, if you want to contact Matt and Firm Foundations and find out more about the Genesis and the apprenticeship program, I encourage you, in the show notes, we're going to have contact information. But this can happen around the world and around the country.
Yep.
What we're looking for, pastors, let me talk to you. If you can do this, believers can do this. Believers can walk with your brothers and sisters and equip and encourage them to continue not only just their faith, but their leadership in the
Yep.
church. So this can happen no matter where you're at. Okay, so how can someone support prison ministry in the next coming months? What's if someone's listening right now and they're like, man, this is a tipping point. I believe that I should do something. What in the next few months do you see? What do you encourage people to do?
So I'll give what we're going through right now. So we had a guy that got out with pneumonia like 3 weeks ago out of Lansing. Imagine how scary that is. You know what I mean? And so we've got houses with 9 guys in them, or 8 guys, or 5 guys, or depending upon the size of the house. What does that do to everybody in the house, right? Everybody's freaked out, and so we had to strip back a room, disinfect the house, and I mean so it turns out he had pneumonia. Praise God, you know what I mean? And he was getting better, and so it wasn't COVID, but that doesn't mean that danger's not there. So if you're looking to support somebody, find somebody like us, like you guys at World Impact, Brothers in Blue, or somebody so we're doing stuff on the streets. So we're restricted right now on the inside, but man, we got brothers and sisters out here right now that are coming out of prison,
Right.
and they need help with rent. They need help with food. They need help, organizations like us where we were talking about the Paytech protection program, and we really don't qualify because we're contract. You know what I'm saying? I don't have W-2 employees. And so it's stuff like that. It's understanding that, yeah, God is good and he's sovereign, but find somebody that's doing it and just pour into their people. Find somebody that's got houses or external programs or churches, or just like my brother Danny with Pillar of Fire down in Sandy. I mean, find somebody like that and say, hey, man, I just want to pour into what you're doing, because what that does is really you enforce it. So when they do open the doors back at the prison, man, we're not trying to skip by, you know what I mean, with a broken leg and a crutch, trying to get back into we're ready to go.
This is the opportunity that people have. If you're listening, if you're watching and you've seen that there is a need, there's a need not only inside, but there's a need for help and support of ministries that are incorporating our family, our citizens returning. You can help. So find information. One of the things that you mentioned, World Impact, we have what's called the Onesimus Workshop, where we gather pastors and leaders, Christian leaders together, and we train them on how to do this. Because look, not everybody knows or is familiar with this ministry. And so let us train you. We've got those workshops happening around the country. So in the show notes, find us, or just go to our website, worldimpact.org. Okay, before I let you go, Matt, are there any common myths about prison ministry that you can speak to? A lot of times we just are ignorant. You know what I mean? We're just ignorant of things, but are there some just common myths that you hear or see around?
So one of the biggest ones is that we don't change our stripes. You know what I'm saying? So I will say this, David. There's a few people like my wife knew who I was before, right? And and I don't broadcast that garbage because that's old me. But but man, I was not a good dude. I just wasn't. I hurt a lot of people. I mean, I made the newspaper. You know what I mean? I was not a good person. But God radically changed my life, right? And it's funny because my mom honestly didn't trust me till like 3 years ago. I've been out of prison 11 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it took her like 8 years to say, "Oh man, he's really not going to go get high again and go back to prison." Uh, but that we will never change, and that we're always just looking for a come up, and it's always a manipulation, because it's not, man. What we've lacked, and I speak for myself, but I know I speak for a lot of people. What we've lacked in life is real opportunities that weren't tainted with selfishness or something else, right? And most of us just want a family to love us and an opportunity to succeed and to be successful in life. Uh, and so to me, the biggest misconception is that we don't deserve a second chance like other people do. You know, I will forever carry. I mean, even if I got my record expunged, if a policeman runs my record, bro, I've got I've got a lengthy NCIC record. So I will carry that jacket no matter what for the rest of my life. Uh, I shouldn't have to worry about that jacket everywhere I go. I shouldn't have to worry about getting a job. And you know what? I shouldn't have to worry about not being good enough at a church to be able to get up and speak if God's called me to preach. And
Absolutely.
so that's, you know, and I say that because that hit me on a really deep level, is just like you or anybody else involved. I'm a regenerated man of God, and so I deserve just as much of a chance, of course, with boundaries, to go as far as anybody else gets to. And so I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people, right? And
Yeah.
and the bigger problem is if you really look, most of the craziness that happens, it's not returned citizens that are causing most of the problem. You know what I mean? You pull their name up, they don't have a police record. All the major
Right.
shootings, that's most of them, actually almost all of them. None of them are convicted felons. You know, and so it's changing the mindset of understanding that not everybody is just going to do this for the rest of their life, right? And the other thing, and I know this is a touchy subject, right? But not every sex offender is a predator, and I say that because it needs to be said. Um, we lump everybody together as a sex offender, and the fact is some of them were Romeo and Juliet stories. Some, you know what I mean? There's a lot of, and so don't put the walls up before you actually know what happens. I think those are the two big ones.
Wow. And if we can believe that God can radically revolutionize our lives, he can do it and will do it with anybody and
Yep.
everybody that he wants to.
Yep.
Matt, thank you so much for
Thank
being with
you.
us today, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and just by representing a lot of people who are doing the work of the gospel and advancing the kingdom. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Don't forget, this conversation doesn't end here. Reach out on social media or email us at empowered@worldimpact.org with your questions and topic suggestions. We really appreciate your time, and bless you, and God bless everyone listening today. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Matt.
Hey, thank you, David.